All right, Sarah, I think I'm back and we are good to go. We are ready to rock and roll. Oh, I'm so
All right,
excited.
great.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. We are ready to get started. And thank you guys as we're really wrapping up our last webinar in the series. And this has been so much fun. And we have talked about a lot. And we truly believe that healthy eating can be fail proof if we put these few steps into place. And that's what we're doing. So it really starts with buying the right foods, which we talked about in the very first webinar. And then we moved on to your meal plan for the week, and really talked about not relying on your willpower to keep your family healthy and letting your system do the work for you, which is where the meal plan tool comes into play. And then we also talked about now we're talking about how to set up your home so that healthy eating just happens. And so that's what we're gonna be working on right now. So I'm so anxious to have a really good friend of mine who we have pretty much kind of grown up together since our college years. And she is just amazing and incredibly organized. And she's also a professional organizer too, which is just blows our mind. I mean, what a great skill that she has for all this. And she actually goes into homes and helps people get organized. And she organizes their kitchens and their pantries and their offices and their nurseries and, just does all this. She has such a great knack for just how to kind of put it all together and clear the clutter. But we also find that it's about a lot more than just the clutter. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to my good friend, Sarah. And her business is called Your Life Well Organized. And before, yes, and I do want to just very quick, go ahead, Sarah, let's go ahead and just get started with your presentation and I'll advance the slides for you.
Okay, great, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Mandy, for having me come on and letting me talk to you about this passion of mine in organizing and about how getting organized can really make such a difference in your life, not just, emotionally, but really also physically and how you're feeling about yourself and the choices that you make. So I'm extremely passionate about organizing and how, far-reaching the effects in a positive way getting organized can really help you become. And obviously, I love the initiative of Healthy Kids Inc. I think it's fantastic. And I think being organized really ties in well with helping you make good food choices only because you're making it easier on yourself. Mm-hmm. And the more you make it easier on yourself, the more often you're going to make those right choices.
Yes.
So with that, if you'll put it on the first slide for me, Mandy.
Yes.
Does this clutter make my butt look fat? Which cracks me up. So this is actually the title of a book by a man named Peter Walsh. I don't know if anyone is familiar with him, but he was on the Oprah show, I think, a bunch of times and started the TV show Extreme Clutter, professional organizer, and he's written a lot of best-selling books. This is one of them. And in this book, he begins to really explore the link between healthy choices and our weights and our organizational habits. So really, he's taking a look at how our organizational habits and how we kind of feel in our lives. Do we feel cluttered? Do we feel overwhelmed and anxious? How are we feeling about our lives and how are we structuring our environment? And then how does that play out in what types of food choices we're making and what we're putting into our bodies? Is that a priority to us or not? And in fact, one of the recent studies actually showed that, being cluttered isn't going to, be the only reason perhaps people make poor choices in food or gain weight, but it is definitely something that plays a. And, like on the slide, it says people with really cluttered homes, in fact, 77% were more likely to be overweight or obese than those living in a well-organized home. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a pretty big statistic. That's a pretty big number.
Yes.
So organization, it matters. Just move it forward one, Mandy.
Yeah.
Perfect. Because again, and I tell you, every time that I meet with clients, one of the first things that we do is talk about why they decided to call me. So what brought them to that point? And what are their feelings about themselves and about their space, no matter what the space is? And oftentimes it could be the kitchen or the pantry, as Mandy mentioned, but it could really be any room in their home. And I tell you, time and time again, these individuals, they feel overwhelmed. They feel embarrassed in some instances. They feel that when they look around their space, they are so overwhelmed that they often don't even know kind of where to begin or what to do to even start to get organized or to make decisions. And that could be financially, it could be, you know, your food choices, it could be anything. And that, you know, where you live and how you feel in that environment really has a significant impact on, you know, the decisions that you're making. Yes. So it makes complete sense to me with what Mr. Walsh is saying, that of course, if you're feeling all of those feelings, that the anxiety and being overwhelmed, making a healthy food choice for yourself or your family, it's not going to be a priority. Mm-hmm. And how could it be? There's too many other things kind of blocking your way and becoming an obstacle. So on the flip side, if we can get ourselves a little bit more organized, make it easier, make the space around us feel like a relaxing and peaceful environment where we open the pantry door or open the closet door and feel like, you know, a sigh of relief and not, oh gosh, there's so much in here I don't even know. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to grab that bag of chips. It's right there.
Yes.
All right.
Sarah, I love that too. And I just have to tell this story when we were having a discussion with one of our friends about the whole idea of being overwhelmed. And she said exactly what you just said. She said, I'm so overwhelmed by everything around me that it just, as a result, she just says nothing. And she drinks wine instead.
The wine part is okay.
Yes, of course. Yeah, but it's so true. Like, it just feels like we get so overwhelmed that it almost just demotivates us from wanting to do anything and just get even started.
It is, and it's paralyzing. And I think that's what a lot of people feel. They feel paralyzed to make the decisions that they know. And it's not that, you know, all my clients also say, I don't want to live like this. I want to make better choices. Mm-hmm. I want to, you know, feel better about myself. I want to eat better and take better care of myself. But I'm just paralyzed. I can't, you know, move forward.
Yeah. Wow.
It's definitely a sentiment that I hear a lot. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just amazing to me the impact that I really feel that just simply getting organized can have on your life. It is, like I said, it is so far reaching, you know, just beyond the stuff, you know, the stuff that we have. It's really so it's all emotionally connected, and how, you know, we're feeling about ourselves. And that is very closely tied to what we're going to put into our bodies and how much we're going to prioritize our health and our family's health.
Yeah, that is so good. Love it.
So I think we'll talk about I call it the kitchen overhaul. Mm-hmm. So like Mandy said, we want to make healthy choices as easy as possible. Because again, the easier they are, the more often you and your family are going to make the right choices and the healthiest choices for you. So one of the first things that, you know, I like the kitchen or pantry overhaul is making things really accessible. So if you could buy all the healthy food in the world, but if you or your kids don't know where to find it or can't find it quick and easy, it won't get eaten. I don't know, Mandy, if that happens in your house, but I can tell you, if I don't have the right stuff out,
yes,
the kids are going to find a way to find something that I didn't want them to have, you know, snuck its way into our pantry.
Yes, you're right.
So make it easily accessible. The second thing I would say is, you know, the healthier you eat, the fresher the food you're going to buy. You're going to be buying less processed foods. Just to make sure that you're getting that food eaten quickly so that it doesn't end up going into your trash can wasted. A good thing that I like for people to do is have an Eat Me First bin that they keep in their refrigerators or wherever is appropriate with the food that it needs to be eaten first. And so it makes it really easy for the kids to know, oh, I need to eat, you know, the apples out of this basket or, you know, whatever it might be.
Oh, I love that idea. That's great.
Yeah, Eat Me First. The last piece of your kitchen overhaul, making healthier choices can, you know, cost extra money, and it can take extra time. Now, what Mandy and Healthy Kids have done is incredible with their meal planning tools and the techniques and the capabilities that they have for making that process as quick, easy as possible. I mean, think about how much time, you know, you save and sitting down to make a grocery list and,
Yeah.
what do I do this day? But it still is an investment of time. And so I always say, yes, it's an investment of time. It might be an investment of money, but it's so worth it. And you can offset those costs, the cost of your time and the actual money in your wallet, by being organized. And what I mean by that is, if you think about when you do go to the grocery store and make your food purchases, or when you are meal planning, if you open your pantry and it is like the shelves are falling over, you have no idea what's in there, you're going to end up overbuying. You're going to buy something that you already have that you don't realize is in the back of the pantry, or you're going to buy something that you have too much of, and food is going to expire and go to waste. So again, it's really, think about that when you're thinking about, oh, do I really want to spend that money on, this organic product or this healthier, fresher choice? I say always yes. And there's ways to offset that cost just through being organized.
Yes, you're right. I laugh so much about this story. I've blogged about this before, but for years I would go grocery shopping with my grandmother every week. And every week, regardless of what she had in the house, she would always buy an entire week's worth of food. And much of it would never, and she was just cooking obviously for herself. But so instead of actually going through the cupboards, we would just buy her new portable pantries and things like that. So she ended up having 4 different, pantry type things that would hold all of her canned goods. It literally was stocked for Armageddon.
Hilarious.
I know, but I think we sometimes get in that mood or that feel where we just need to always keep getting it. What if we run out? What if we don't have it? But
That is exactly right.
Yeah, but doing inventory of what we have is huge.
It is. And a lot of times if you're not putting things back, again, it's all about location. If you're not putting things back in a consistent home and a consistent location, you're going to forget that, oh, I had that box of whatever and it's just in a different shelf this time. So location is important as well, and consistency is definitely key.
Yes, for sure. I could look at this kitchen picture all day long, but I guess we shall advance to the next slide.
I know. I wish it was mine.
Yes, love it.
Okay, so how do I begin? Yes, all of this is such a great theory and it all sounds so wonderful, but people often just need to know, give me the step-by-steps. What do I really need to do to get started? And I don't care if you're organizing your kitchen or your pantry or your bedroom closet or whatever it is, the first thing you need to do always is take everything out. Now, when we're talking about the kitchen, I would just do the pantry first on its own and then deal with the refrigerator separately. But get everything out. And don't not take something out and think, oh, I can just leave that in there. It's fine. I know what that is. Take it all out. I know it's going to be messy for a little bit, but it'll be worth it. So take it out. Make sure you're starting to throw away. Look at the expiration dates. Throw the stuff away that you don't, that it's gone, past its, due date or expiration date. And then also, as you're doing that, start grouping items. So put, your canned stuff together. Put, I always like to do a breakfast basket. So dry goods that are all related to kind of making breakfast, I put in a wire basket together. So as you're doing that, on your kitchen table, you won't have organizing storage solutions at this point, but just start grouping items. And similarly, if you find that you have, from a while, some things that you don't want your family to eat and you want to get it out because if it's in your house, it's kind of fair game, as Mandy would say, then throw it away or donate it. If it's still good, definitely donate it. There's lots of places you can take dry goods and canned goods that are great causes. Homeless shelters, you can go through churches. But if it's food you do not want for your family anymore, then just get rid of it. Just don't even have it be an option, and don't let it take up your, precious space. So once you've done that kind of sorting and you will start to evaluate, okay, what's left, and start thinking about the kinds of storage solutions that will work for you and for what you have left. Like I said, I'm a big fan of grouping items together. It makes it so much easier when you go into your pantry or in your refrigerator to say, oh, I'm getting low on this. I need to get this on my list for the next time versus, oh, this is on sale, but you know what? I have 3 boxes of it, so I really don't need that. It will help you make better choices when you're meal planning and doing your food shopping.
Okay.
And I guess the other tip I would have is don't run out and buy products before you get organized. Get organized, and that might mean like a day or 2 of having all your food on your kitchen table, and that's okay. But it's more important to make the right choice in terms of storage solutions, so you're not running back and forth to the store, returning and getting something different. So measure your spaces, check the shelving height, look at the spaces, look at your groupings of items and say, okay, I need a basket kind of about this big to get all my canned goods together. Mm-hmm. So do that kind of thoughtful planning in advance.
That's great. Love it.
All right. And the next slide is really just talking more specifically about storage solutions. So there's so many great storage solutions. As an organizer, I could spend hours at the Container Store or Home Goods or so many places, Target. But anyways, there's kind of some of my go-to favorites specifically for pantries. And it includes the items on this list that you'll see on this slide. Plastic stackable bins. Always use your vertical space when you can, because a lot of times, you have a lot of space in between your shelves in a pantry. So the best way to use the vertical space is to buy things like stackable bins. The large snack basket. This is my favorite thing for kids, especially. Mm-hmm. The snack basket should be big and long and open, and it should be right on like the shelf that's at your kids' height, mm-hmm. right in their eye line, and it should only have the foods that you want them to have. So there shouldn't be anything in that basket that you wouldn't want them to eat. It should just be totally parent approved, have at it. If they take it from that basket, that it's a good choice. Canisters and mason jars, a lot of the rest, I'm not going to talk about each of them, but a lot of the rest are just ideas. And again, it's more about evaluating the kinds of things you have left in your pantry that you kind of need to pull together. But do group things and do containerize them as much as you can, because it will be a lot easier to maintain an organized space by doing that. And it will be, like I said, a lot easier to evaluate quickly by looking in one bin or one basket and saying, I'm low on this, mm-hmm. or I'm low on that, or I have 3 bottles of ketchup or whatever. Yeah, I don't need any more.
That's good.
Yeah, so again, don't overbuy, don't waste space. Mm-hmm. That type of containerizing will really help you.
Awesome. Those are great ideas.
And my last slide is really just, more support for why getting organized can really have such a positive impact on your life, and not just health-wise. And I know I've repeated this a number of times, but it really, really can make an impact in all aspects of your life. And just some of the stats that I have on this slide really support the fact. I mean, it's about saving space, time, saving money. It's all of those things. And obviously, the emotional kind of benefit of it, I think, is huge too.
That is huge. I love that last one. Oh my gosh, that's pretty powerful.
The 80% of, it's like, you hear the 80-20 rule all the time.
Yeah.
It kind of applies to everything, and it absolutely applies to our stuff. I mean, literally, you think about, look in your closet, mm-hmm. Just that alone, how much do you wear? As easily as 20%. Couldn't be more. There, unless you've just done a massive clean out, it's just, and that really applies to everything, the toys, everything in our homes.
Yes, that's perfect. Gosh, this is so good, and it's so helpful. And, Sarah and I talk a lot about just the emotional piece of this, which I think is really, really important. I mean, this is a lot deeper than, the surface level for sure. There's a study that just came out, kind of talking about one of her earlier slides, but there was a study that just came out, and I think I actually just got it this week. It was very timely, but it was talking about, just what we keep on our counters in our kitchen, and it said, and it was actually a study, and it said those who keep fresh fruit out in the open tended to be a normal weight compared with their peers. But when snacks like cereals and sodas were readily accessible on the counter, they were by average 20 pounds more heavier than their neighbors who were keeping fruit out in the open. And those who kept soda out in the open and within reach were an average of 25 pounds more than those who didn't. So, I mean, it really, I mean, there's so much that can be learned from all of this. These are just little things that make a huge, big difference.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Mandy. It really is, you know, things that seem easy, they seem small, but they do. They have a huge impact on the choices that we make. And again, make it easy for yourself, make it easy for your kids. It's hard to make smart choices.
Yeah.
You know, anyone would rather eat the fries, you know, or get some ice cream. Like that's just part of being human and, you know, being lucky to be living in America and having access to all these amazing, yummy treats. But at the same time, like if you can make it easier on yourself to do the right thing in terms of what you're putting in your body, it will pay off. It will make your life so much easier.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. For sure. We had a couple more slides we wanted to share with the group as well, and I'll go ahead and go to these. So, I love this when we talk about just organization, and this is, a few final comments about this, and this is just from a time management perspective. But, along the lines of what Sarah was saying too, I mean, how many times does our refrigerator feel like, what we see on the left? Because it's so easy for that to happen. We just get home from the grocery store and we just throw everything in there and move on to the next thing. But what a difference it makes when you can use, as Sarah mentioned, some of those same containers and just store everything that you need for the meal in those containers. And it certainly helps a lot. We actually have a lot of members who ask about the containers like that. They buy them, they want to use them. And in some cases, if you have an extra refrigerator, it kind of makes it nice because you can even throw them in a spare garage refrigerator or something like that. But, we find that those types of organizational tools inside the refrigerator make a really big difference too.
Absolutely, Mandy. I totally agree. And I actually I'm doing a 30-day challenge, and I just did a few days ago the refrigerator as part of the challenge for kind of the daily organization. And just having things corralled makes it so much, it's much prettier to look at, but it's so much easier. My kids know exactly where the treats are, and I say treats, but they know exactly where the things are that they can have and that they know is a mom approved. They don't need to ask me, can I have this? Like, it's fine. And just in terms, again, keeping it kind of all together will make your meal making process so much more efficient. Like Mandy said, it's there, it's together, it's ready to go. And we all know how little time we have in the evenings to do everything else that we need to do as busy parents, aside from getting a good meal on the table. So anytime you have an opportunity to make things more efficient and quicker, do it.
And one thing that Sarah had also talked about too, and this is kind of what we consider to be our, what I just showed was a massive decked out, geeked out meal planning, but sometimes it's just as simple as just cutting up your vegetables. And it's keeping in those containers, like you say, so you can quickly pull them out, so kids can quickly access them. Because we don't necessarily always want kids to be able to, cutting up fruits and vegetables. So the more we can do that for them, the easier it is for all of us. And Sarah, you were talking about that too, even just with your lunch and how you kind of prep and get everything cut up, and so it's easy to pull out.
Absolutely. I'm at home a lot of times for lunch, working out of my home unless I'm with a client, and so I try to eat salads for lunch, and I, love to put all kinds of yummy vegetables on salads and all kinds of great things, but I am 200% more likely to get that on my plate if everything is pre-cut and ready in little containers. It's so easy.
Yes.
And if I think about, oh gosh, I don't have tomato, I got to cut up a tomato. Maybe I bypass the salad. So I want to make it, much easier for myself not to bypass the salad.
I love it. It's so funny. Like, you're right. Like the smallest task of, the lettuce isn't clean.
Again, how long would it take? Like 30 seconds. But still, it feels like a lot when you're in a hurry and you just need to eat something quick.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And I also share the idea of the snack bin that Sarah had already talked about as well. But, it goes back to having just items, and this is probably, I wouldn't say maybe the healthiest snack bin, drawer out there. But again, it just kind of goes back to, having a selection of snacks that the kids can have. I mean, obviously, we always want to make sure that they're using the snacks in the refrigerator. Your fruits and vegetables should always be the first go-to. But, this certainly helps and makes it nice. And and I think the final just takeaway that you had said is that, we kind of need to have that mentality that your home is your safe haven. And I had this experience actually just over the Halloween, which is my most unfavorite event of the entire year. I can't stand Halloween, but anyway, it's because this has always been me. But anyway, so we wrapped up our Halloween and, the kids are so excited because they have 12,000 buckets of candy. So we let them keep a small portion themselves and then they are donating a lot. But then we got busy. And so we were supposed to be taking that huge amount of candy to be donated out and we didn't. So guess what? The kids ate all of it in like 3 days. And you know what? At first, we were mad. We were mad at the kids. We're like, man, I can't believe they ate all the candy. Like, how much candy that would have been to eat in a short amount of time? But the truth is, though, it's our fault. I mean, we shouldn't have had it in the house. So I think we have to kind of get in that mentality as parents that, it's not, we're sending the wrong message if we have the junk food on the top shelf, like out of the kids' reach. And if we try and still keep those things in the home, but, kids can't touch that, like it just sends such a mixed message to them. So the house needs to be the place where all foods are fair game. And, our kids are going to get plenty of other places to eat a bunch of junk food, but let's make sure that our home is safe. We can at least control what's in the home. So that was a great kind of lesson for us. It just was like, that's what we get. That's our own fault. But we see that happen a lot. I mean, so much about health is the environment that we're in. So are we sending kids mixed messages by trying to keep things out of their reach, which would just makes it eyeball candy for them? They're all over that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely, Mandy. If you're saying, oh, well, mom can have a soda, but you can't, they just are going to want it all the more.
Yes, it's so true. Yeah, you're right on. So I think this is awesome. I mean, there are just so many great lessons from all of this. So Sarah, thank you so much for all this. And I hope everybody will go check out Sarah's website, Your Life Well Organized. And please check her out on Facebook too. Again, she's doing this amazing 30-day challenge. And every day she is taking a different, piece of the house or different drawers throughout the house or closets or whatever, and she's showing you like before and after and just giving you incredible inspiration and just I don't know, it's awesome. So thank you so much because this has really been great. It's helping a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much, Mandy. Like I said, I love your cause, and I'm so thankful that you asked me to participate and just share some organizational insights. And if even one of the tips helps someone, in their daily lives, then I would be thrilled. So thank you again.
Yeah, that is so great. All right, well, I'm going to move on to the second half of our webinar tonight and just talk very briefly. This question came up and as a result of one of our webinars as we're kind of closing the loop and ending our webinar series, which has just been so much fun. And I think the organization was the perfect kind of end to the discussion, how we tie all of this together. But one of the questions that came up very recently was, about the gluten-free, which we've talked about a little bit, the products that we buy, and then also talking about ADHD and could a gluten-free diet help with ADHD? So I'm using the tail end of this webinar to kind of transition into that discussion, and it also kind of ties in some of the things we've been talking about this whole webinar series too, and we'll kind of use this as our closing. So anyway, and I think this is a really great question because personally, we're starting to battle with this a little bit too. And I've mentioned that in a couple of different things that with my youngest son, he suffered from chronic constipation actually since he was born. And not only is that an issue that we've been battling, but he's also starting to have some focus problems too. So, and we're seeing that, we're hearing that from the teacher and from some other things too. So, we too are kind of working on this at the same time. So I can certainly relate to the question. So I thought I would just go over a couple of things, again, as we pull all this together. And I first want to talk about just in general, what is gluten and why is it even an issue? So, and the best way to kind of know what gluten is it's the Latin word for it is glue. glue. I mean, that's essentially what it is. So think about it like that. So it's a protein that holds flour together, and that's what makes our bread so soft and so chewy. It's like, we love soft bread in our society. And I always think about like that sunbeam bread that just like melts in your mouth. And it's actually even said that our breads today have even more gluten in them because we as a society have just gotten fixated on that, soft, ooey gooey, chewy bread. And as a result, if you've ever tried to make your own homemade gluten-free bread, it is a completely different experience. And I say that because, Kirk and I have tried this many, many times. We actually were trying to make, a gluten-free pepperoni roll. And so we experimented with so many different recipes. And I tell you what, there is nothing more dense than gluten-free bread, and it has zero shelf life. I mean, literally, I'd make gluten-free pepperoni rolls, and I would want to take them to have other people test them, and within 2 hours, they literally had no shelf life. They were hard as a brick. So that's the hard thing about when you don't have gluten, you don't have that like soft feel to it. But it's not just found in breads, it's in pastas and cookies and muffins and even some things we wouldn't expect like gravies and cold cut meats and even in some personal care products like mascaras and things like that. So we really have to keep a close eye on it. But some say that because it's so sticky, that kind of interferes with the breakdown and the absorption of nutrients, and it can also cause some digestive problems. And then some also say that, some of these grains containing gluten can cause inflammation. So, there can be inflammation in the gut, there can be inflammation in the brain. So, for example, celiac, which a lot of people hear, that's inflammation in your gut. Autism is often inflammation in your brain. So, celiac patients can see lessened symptoms when they go on a gluten-free diet. And in many cases, some autistic children can see improvements in their symptoms with a gluten-free diet. Not that it is the end-all cure-all, but sometimes there are reduced symptoms because it helps to, getting off the gluten helps to alleviate that inflammation. So if you have a gluten sensitivity, which about roughly 18 million Americans have, and I'm not saying it's an allergic, that you're not allergic to gluten, you just have a sensitivity to it. So for me, I have a sensitivity. I've not tested positive for a gluten allergy. I've had the test, but I did not test positive. But I can tell you how it makes me feel, and I want to sleep for 16 hours. Just bread makes me do that, or any type of gluten. I get massive brain fog, ADD, anxiety. I went to the doctor because I thought I had Tourette's. I mean, it causes all kinds of massive issues, and that was how I knew that I had that sensitivity. So that's how how your body responds to it. So once you take something out and kind of eliminate gluten, and then when you put it back in and you start to feel those feelings again, then you have a sensitivity to it. And so depression and anxiety are often very severe in patients who have gluten sensitivity. So it's just something to kind of be thinking about. So if you are struggling with ADHD or focus problems, one option might be to look at eliminating gluten for a couple of months. Not to say it's the actual cure-all, but it very well could be. And I have some stats up here, which I think are very interesting about ADHD. The CDC reported in just a couple of years ago that 1 in 5 high school age boys and 11% of school age children overall have been diagnosed with ADHD. That's about 6.5 million children between the ages of 4 and 17 diagnosed with ADHD. And 2/3 of those receive prescription drugs to improve the symptoms of it. So, and we're also starting to see anti-anxiety medication increase considerably in children as well. So while, I certainly don't want to give any advice on that, but I would encourage though, that certainly looking at diet is certainly a piece of the puzzle for sure. And generally you can see within about 30 to 90 days if that's going to work. So for us and my little one, we could see very, very quickly that immediately started to help with some of the problems that he was having. We're still not where we want to be with the focus, but it definitely helped the other items. So we continue to kind of work on that a little bit too. So that is one piece of the puzzle for ADHD is looking at gluten. But the other piece about it is something that we have talked a lot about over the last couple of webinars, and that's the idea of added sugar. And it seems like such a no-brainer, but as we started to talk about all the different foods and the additives that we have in foods, I think it's another good thing to really just make sure we're kind of watching. So, here's some things that we had talked about. We had talked about, the favorite Fruity Pebbles, and this was actually brought up in our very first webinar. But when you look at the ingredients again, it has added sugar. Then it also has, some other things on here too, but then you're going to notice all of the dyes. So the dyes, which are known to also cause hyperactivity in children and even contribute to disease and cancer and things along those lines. So, we're seeing that a lot of the the foods targeted toward kids are really not very healthy and contain some really unhealthful ingredients. And then I talk, and then of course the kid favorite, an adult favorite too, Pop-Tarts. Oh my gosh, who doesn't love that? But you look at the ingredients again, it's the corn syrup, the high fructose corn syrup, dextrose. So anything that ends in ose is going to be sugar. You're going to see sugar all throughout those ingredients. And then you're going to get to the bottom and you're going to see the dyes, yellow 6, blue 1. Blue is known to cause hyperactivity as well in children. So, the foods that we're eating could be contributing to some of the symptoms that we are seeing. And then finally, I talk a little bit about, the breads. And remember, and we've talked about these in both webinars too, but what the breads do inside of our body because they convert to sugar. And because it creates this massive spike in our blood sugar. So I showed these 3 different options, and then in just a short amount of time, literally this was, within about 5 minutes, you can see what the different breads did. So the white bread, which completely, that also has the gluten, but it wreaks havoc on our blood sugar system because it's an immediate spike. So you can see now what that's doing to our kids' bodies. So as a result of it then, they're having all these ups and downs throughout the day. So the kids are eating the white bread, they're seeing the blood sugar spike, so they're getting all excited, then they have the low again. And so as a result, the kids are now on these ups and downs all day long. So that's a lot of what we're seeing right now is, the breads can also play a part in that. Here was and then here's some of the grains as well. Again, I love this. I was actually just reading a book about this, and this was just a great thing. And there's something called the glycemic index, which is how quickly your blood sugar will rise. And here are 4 different examples. One is a slice of whole wheat bread. I'm not talking about whole grains. I'm talking about whole wheat, which is kind of subpar to the whole grain, of course. Snickers bar, a tablespoon of pure white sugar, and a banana. And which one would you think would have the highest glycemic index? And we probably all would say, well, of course, the Snickers bar, right? But when you actually pull it up, you can see here that the slice of whole wheat bread actually has the highest glycemic index of 71, which, the lower it is, the better. So not encouraging people to go out and eat the Snickers bar because it's full of other unhealthy ingredients. But you can see the point, though, is that, now the breads are also playing a role in that. So, obviously with white and the whole wheat kind of causing the biggest spike. So from a bread perspective, one, if you're going to eat gluten, then obviously best to kind of go for those whole grains that are going to keep you full for longer, not cause a blood sugar spike. The ultimate is the sprouted grain bread, of course. Or ditch that and then you go for the gluten-free. But you got to be careful on the gluten-free too, because just because it's gluten-free does not mean that it's good, does not mean that it's healthy. So in many cases, the gluten-free can cause those sugar rush, those spikes as well. The gluten-free is just helping to eliminate the gluten if you have a gluten sensitivity to it. So hopefully that makes sense. So I guess my recommendation would be then to try it. If you feel like you are seeing some focus issues, which of course is where we're at right now and working on that as well, we continue to experiment with this and just continue to try new things. But we certainly are seeing that the gluten, removing the gluten is having an impact. It's not going to be the end-all be-all solution. We're still looking at a couple other things, but it certainly is helping for us too. So that takes care of, I think, that final kind of question that had come up about ADHD and gluten. I will open it up. Do we have any questions at all from the group? Sarah, I'm gonna try and stop this and just screen share so they can see us. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
All right, so I will give everyone just a minute or so. If they have a question, they can certainly put it in the chat box or follow back up with us a little bit later. But this was just so much fun. So I can't thank you enough, Sarah, for being on here and for talking about all this. It's just the perfect end to this whole series. And we're going to keep talking about this because, Sarah and I, before we got started, we're talking about, kids and kids and their organization and how a lot of this plays in. We talk about, we kind of joke about, our kids being hoarders sometimes. But, all of these, yes, sometimes. Yeah. But you know how it is. Like kids don't want to get rid of, they don't want to get rid of any of their papers. We have to go at night and put papers, to dispose of any of their work, their prized possession. So, I think that there's a lot we can talk about with kids and organization and how all this kind of plays into effect too. And start to build some good, healthy habits early on.
Yeah, I totally agree. I always laugh that I have become a professional organizer and I'm raising a hoarder. Like, it's just hilarious to me. And I say that joking, but in all sincerity, I think helping kids that maybe are naturally organized make better organizational choices, I think will just help in the long run with all of these things that we've been talking about. Because again, really, getting significantly disorganized and having a significant amount of clutter in your life down the road, can cause other problems and it'll seep into all areas of your life. So the earlier, we can kind of teach some skills that will help, the better.
That's awesome. I love it. So Sarah, I'm kind of curious about this because this just kind of came up in the chat. What are your thoughts about buying in bulk? Are you a fan or no?
I tell you what I do. So some things I say yes. If you have a lot of space, buy in bulk. Just identify your space where you're going to maintain those things and put them, if you buy a huge thing of Bounty towels or toilet paper, like keep them in the same spot every time. And so I say, if you have the space, use it. Absolutely 100%. If you don't have the space and it's going to actually cause clutter or cause you to have things piled up that actually makes you feel stressed and it makes you uncomfortable because like, oh, I hate looking at that, then don't do it. Because really a lot of it is how you react to it. Some people, I talk about this a lot too, are you a stuff out or a stuff in person? Meaning when you organize, do you want to see things because you're visual and if it goes away, you'll forget? Or are you the kind of person that no, you want it all put away because you don't want to see it, and that's okay. You'll still remember where things are. So that's two different types of people, and I think that will come into play in terms of, if you don't have, tons of storage space in your home, then if you're also a stuff in or put away person, that is probably going to cause you anxiety. So don't do it. It just wouldn't be worth it.
That's awesome. That's great.
One other thing I would say, just in terms of maybe not buying in bulk, and I'm interested to hear your feedback on this, is a lot of times just in terms of just even the money, especially with meats, I buy a lot on sale and freeze. And I know a lot of people, they put food in their freezer. How is that in terms of nutritional, or is it hurting the nutritional value when you're freezing fruits and meats and all that kind of stuff?
No, it doesn't. Actually, we just got a ton of meat that we bought in bulk, like 2 freezers worth. So yeah, like 200 pounds of meat, oddly enough. But so we're huge fans of buying that in bulk too, and just keeping that in the freezer. Yeah. So no, from a nutritional standpoint, it doesn't hurt. And the same really for frozen. I think when it comes to frozen though, it depends on, if it's flash frozen and it comes from the grocery store, that's when it's at its peak nutrients, and that's when that's good. That's a great thing to buy frozen. But I've also had it where I've tried to like freeze it myself, after it might have sat for a little bit. And I don't know that's, it's fine. It's still a great way to preserve it, but I wouldn't say it's like at its peak nutrients by any means, but it's still better than throwing it away, of course. But there's nothing wrong with buying like frozen foods and keeping them. I think it's obvious it's a great option, especially now as we're hitting like winter time too. We're going to see a lot more. Frozen food just kind of become a little bit more common too. But yeah, perfectly fine from a nutrient standpoint. But I'm that way with my freezer too. Like that freezer, wanting it as clutter free as possible. That's another area I think that we can just sometimes it just gets stuff. It's piled in there and it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, and freezers are great. You can get they're almost like tension rods that you can put in like lengthwise to create divided spaces in your freezer if you have a drawer that pulls out. Other people, like some people honestly use things like you know, the magazine boxes that like they're like a box size and you actually could put a magazine. Some people use those in their freezer to create divided spaces, but I definitely divide my spaces, and all of like anything that's like fruits is in one section, veggies in another. Sometimes I freeze breads, that kind of stuff is in another, and then my meats are together.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's the same thing too, because you know, if I'm freezing meat, I want to make sure that when I take it out, I'm pulling out what the oldest and using that, and not letting that the oldest thing sit there for longer, because eventually I might look at the date and be like, "Ooh, I don't want to eat this at all," even though it's been frozen.
Yes.
And that's just another good way to make sure that you're using the right things first, kind of like your eat me first basket in your refrigerator or on your counter.
It's so funny that you say that. I just had that. I bought some fish and I didn't use it as quick as I needed to. So I threw it in the freezer. And then I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know if I have the guts to eat it. Maybe I shouldn't. It's this whole process. I mean, you hate to waste food. But it was just it was one of those funky things. So gosh. Well, this was super helpful. Thank you so much. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And Sarah, thank you so much. And again, please feel free to check Sarah out, yourlifewellorganized.com. Check her out on Facebook too, and send her messages too. And if you are looking for some home organization, she's actually, she can do remotely via Skype. She also works with clients via Skype too. So she can do all that. You can kind of do some, just take your little mobile camera and show her what you've got, and she can give you some great advice and work with you from that perspective too. So. All right. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you guys for joining. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.